When I was a kid watching Battlestar Galactica, the original one of my favorite episodes was the two-parter Living Legend. Commander Cain, played by Lloyd Bridges, commanding the Battlestar Pegasus, reunites with Galactica and its fleet, butts heads with Adama, but in the end saves the day. We get some space battles, a commando raid on a Cylon planet, and a bold attack against insurmountable odds before the legend disappears into the void, leaving the hope of return one day.
As far as I'm concerned, he just headed out into deep space, the way he did the last time.
Cain buys into his own legend a little too much, but he's heroic, noble. It's a story of clearly good guys fighting clearly bad guys. Seriously, the Cylon Imperious leader turns out to be the actual devil.
And you cannot ever again force me to do anything against my will. I know you. I remember that voice.
The remake changed things up. Admiral Cain, now portrayed by Michelle Forbes, is a very different character. Even though the initial arrival of Cain on the Galactica is similar in both iterations of the show, the remake weaves an ominous tone into the meeting.
Welcome back to the Colonial Fleet.
Is that how you see it? The little seed of power struggle only grows when Adama and Cain confer. While Galactica 78 introduces a difference of opinion over strategy, Adama is the ranking official, and the dynamic doesn't stray far from that clear chain of command and happy reunion. New Galactica has much more tension. Admiral Cain outranks Adama, and there's a palpable struggle for authority happening between words. President Roslin represents the political authority that Adama had in the original, now cleaved off as another variable.
This is your ship, and I have no desire to interfere with Galactica's internal affairs.
Now, if I'm in Roslin's position here, this is the point when I start drafting in my head the order appointing Adama as Secretary of Defense. But what the story does is in some ways more interesting. Adama and Galactica's crew are an example of humanity driven to desperation and responding by clinging desperately to their humanity. Cain and the Pegasus crew respond to that same desperation by discarding that humanity, becoming callous and cruel. And it happens within the framework of a group of people large enough to keep going through the forms of their old society, following a military structure as though it's still part of a larger industrial civilization. They have a government with elected representatives for colonies that no longer exist. On some level, they're denying what's happened to them, denying that they've become tens of thousands of people trapped in metal tubes, adrift from everything that defined them as they travel through the void toward a destination that may not even exist. And the arrival of the Pegasus throws in this extra element of dirty political maneuvering and brutal pragmatism very different from the old show. Part of this shift is cultural and can be seen in a lot of the entertainment of the time getting darker. Shows like The Wire, The Sopranos, and their various imitators, and the whole dark and gritty reboot trend of the last 15 to 20 years. The Pegasus crew tracks to that tendency to portray people as worse than we generally are. The first episode of the Pegasus story thread parallels the 78 series in a lot of ways, but always shifted in an ominous direction. Both iterations have the joyous meeting of the pilots from both ships, but the newer series quickly shifts from a fraternal relationship to a dominant struggle.
Well, that's one philosophy.
It's Admiral Cain's philosophy. That means it's your philosophy now, Captain.
And the same thing happens between Adama and Cain, culminating with the Admiral reassigning people from Galactica.
I'm going to integrate the crews, and I'm starting by reassigning Captain Adama to the Pegasus Airway.
Another of those skewed parallels. In the old series, it's Adama that integrates fighter wings out of a sincere belief it will improve morale and unit cohesion.
No offense, but I'd prefer to use just my own wings in this maneuver.
Commander, I think for the purpose of morale, it might be best if we started to integrate our squadrons, give them a strong sense of teamwork.
In the case of Admiral Cain's orders, it's part of the effort to break Galactica. They've become more of a family than a crew, and that's a danger to Cain's authority. The whole scenario is much more cynical in its outlook. Then throw in the scenario with Chief Tyrrell and Hilo from the Galactica being charged with killing Lieutenant Thorne of the Pegasus. Totally justified, even if it had been intentional. And the legalism and regulations become a thin veneer real fast. Cain holds a microwave trial and sentences the two men to death.
Court-martial's over.
Over?
When did it start?
Adama isn't having it.
I want a Marine strike team interrupter in 5 minutes. Prepare to launch alert fighters.
And the two ships almost go at each other until the day is again saved by Starbuck's insubordination.
Another one of her crazy-ass stunts. Thank the gods.
There's the character drama, of course, but this is also the moment when that facade of the colonial fleet evaporates, when Adama and Cain both realize that there's a new status quo. No longer a colonial fleet defending 12 colonies. Now, each ship is a state unto itself, though part of a federal union of sorts. Galactica and Pegasus are the poles vying with each other for leadership of that union, each offering very different visions. They temporarily ally for a joint strike on the Cylons, but both leaders are plotting to eliminate the other.
I will ask for you over the wireless.
I will call you directly, and when I have you on the line and you hear me give the command to execute Case Orange.
When you hear me say downfall,
you are to signal the Marines to terminate Adama's command, starting with Adama.
I want you to pull out your weapon and shoot Admiral Cain in the head.
This is a very different and much darker take than the original series that inspired it.
You realize I can relieve you of your command?
Adama, please. Don't make my last battle an act of mutiny. Send me in with your blessing.
My prayers go with you and all who serve you.
Thank you, Adama. Thank you.
And there's another thread here that's a slower burn. Colonel Fisk, executive officer of the Pegasus, and his equivalent on the Galactica, Colonel Ty, the rank structure in this show is a little peculiar, talk over drinks from time to time, during which Fisk tells some stories about Cain's actions.
She asked for his gun, shot him in the head with it in front of the whole crew.
And more interesting in terms of narrative potential, this.
They were good ships. FTL drives, some weapons even. A lot of potential spare parts that we could use on Pegasus. So, the Admiral made a decision.
Left all those people marooned out there.
No, not all. Admiral Cain looked over the passenger list, and she made a decision about who was valuable and who wasn't.
Now, when I first saw this, I had a sense of a ship out on its own, low on supplies because it was undergoing a refit when the Cylons attacked, and on the edge of running out of fuel, food, and time. There was a story implied in there of desperation driving good people to do horrific things in order to survive.
Razors.
Detour time. Prior to the fourth and final season of the show, we got the one-off special Razor. It really had two stories tied together around a new character, Lieutenant Kendra Shaw. One of the storylines was wedged into the time frame of the series, and it was fine for what it was. The other revisited the Pegasus crew before they found Galactica through their own eyes. There's a lot of potential there. They could tell a very compelling story showing this crew pushed further and further to the edge of survival. Not enough people to manually run ship systems and subsisting on half rations while being mercilessly hunted. Kind of like the Season 1 episode 33, but cranked up to 11 over a span of weeks. Something that by the time they strip a bunch of civilian ships for parts and execute people to make an example, we as the audience are thinking, damn, that's harsh, but I don't know what I'd do differently in that situation. Razor fleshes out why the Admiral has such deep personal and vindictive hatred for the Cylon prisoner and their brig, but it doesn't earn the rest of it. They haven't been pushed far enough for long enough for us to understand their transformation into monsters. Cain seems to want to strip the civilian ships for parts because they might need spares down the line, not because they're running on a failing jump drive held together with duct tape and hopium. Enterprise did that one better. When they board that civilian transport, we should be feeling tension between empathy for these characters over everything they've been through and anxiety about what they might do. Instead, they come across as just trash people.
We have orders to shoot the families of any selectee who refuses to return with us.
Either spineless like Fisk or a casual killer like Shaw here. There's no deeper understanding of them. In fact, it undermines the little hints we got from the rest of the series. Sadly, Razor was a missed opportunity. It's also worth noting that it's another case of details from the original series coming back in skewed forms. In that series, Adama tried to take half of the fuel from Pegasus to spread through the rest of the fleet, leading to some tension between the crews.
According to my data, the Pegasus is carrying a maximum fuel load. I intend to divide part of that load amongst the fleet.
What?
But back to the main thread here. So Cain and Adama both have their coups primed and ready to activate. Cain with a team of Marines on Galactica waiting for the order to seize control, and Adama with Starbuck standing by to assassinate the Admiral. Both weigh the costs and stand down at the last moment, leading to an uneasy balance in the fleet, but not for long. The Cylon prisoner gets her revenge, and Admiral Cain disappears from this iteration of the show, without the possibility of return left open as in the original. In a way, it feels a bit like a cheat, letting our central characters get what they want without having to take responsibility for it.
You've got a killer.
Season 2 goes on to do with Galactica's crew what Razor failed to do with Pegasus. It puts us on the side of people we generally like, doing things we know are wrong. From Roslin and Adama planning to kill Admiral Cain, to President Roslin fortifying the election with a last-minute ballot dump to prevent Gaius fracking Baltar from becoming president. It slowly burns off the polished layers of legal norms and democratic process, leaving behind a cynical shell. If anything, it's a little jarring that Adama and Roslin wimp out over a rigged vote when they were ready to resort to assassination a few episodes earlier, but we'll talk about that election in New Caprica another time. It isn't the last time they stubbornly cling to memories of their old worlds and rules designed for completely different circumstances. It's part of why the story works. Instead of becoming a pirate fleet or simply a train of refugees, they become a nomadic civilization chasing hope for a better future. Sometimes that's a great thing, leading you to the promised land and a new life. But sometimes you follow a charlatan and end up in an open-air prison on New Caprica. I'm sure a lot of Americans watching this are thinking I'm talking about whichever party it is that they don't like. I am.